Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show. As first responders, we risk our lives every day. Our financial security is under attack. Our pensions are in a state of emergency. A single on-duty incident can alter or erase our earning potential instantly and forever. We are the heroes of society. We are self-reliant and we need to take care of our own financial future. The Heroic Investing Show is our toolkit of business and investing tactics on our mission to financial freedom.
Welcome to the Heroic Investing Show, a podcast for first responders, members of the military, veterans, and anyone looking to improve their financial future and gain some freedom with their time. We teach America's heroes how to build passive income, build their startup business, and safely grow wealth through real estate and other alternative investments. We help current and prior first responders put protections, systems, and a team in place to help them build a life where they can focus on their passion, that service or product that they are uniquely gifted to share with others, making the world a better place for all of us. My name is Gary Pinkerton, and I co-host this show with Jason Hartman. This is episode 208. Today's guest is JB Spisso. JB is a leadership and culture expert. He has over 30 years of experience in transforming individuals into leaders. He's a veteran of the United States Army, 26 years of service, including 10 years in special operations with the elite 75th Ranger Regiment, leading the country's most talented soldiers into combat. He has taught at Officer Candidate School. He's also taught at Army West Point. He's got a tremendous story about how he transitioned into the civilian world and continued in the leadership roles, how he taught many organizations to incredible elite performance. I think you're really going to enjoy that. JB is extensively well-versed as a leader, trainer, and educator. He routinely advises C-suite executives on leadership and culture and is a sought-after speaker for industry gatherings and leadership podcasts. He understands the rigors, the risks, the teamwork, and the mindset needed for success. An extremely enthusiastic individual that came out in spades here in this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Here we go with the amazing JB Spisso. Today we got JB Spisso, and he's a 26-year veteran of the Army and an incredible senior enlisted individual who has done special forces stuff, and today he's killing it out in the world of leadership and turning companies around. When I saw the list of companies on JB's website, and I got to remember to ask you about that, when I saw the list of companies, my jaw dropped. There's some massive, amazing companies on there. But first of all, before we jump into all that, JB, thanks so much for joining our audience and spreading some lessons learned, my friend.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here, Gary. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, this is awesome. So JB was telling me a little bit about it, but I want you to kind of dig into what you did in the military. Let's not skip that. And then how you transitioned, what you were looking for, and now you got your own company running. Sure.
Well, yeah, great question, Gary. I initially, joined the Army, for the college fund, back before there was the internet. People can't believe that. You went down to see the Army recruiter, and the recruiter said, "What do you want to be?" And I was like, "I have no idea." So they give you this big book of stuff to do. And then he was looking over my high school transcripts. Saw I was a pretty good student. I played some sports. So he's like, "Drop and give me some push-ups." And then there was a bar across his doorway. He goes, "Do some pull-ups." And then he's like, "Well, why don't you be an Army Ranger?" And I'm like, "Great. What do they do?" And he goes, "Jump out of airplanes, blow stuff up." I said, "Sign me up." So, right. So yeah. I initially went in, 4 years college fund. I wanted to be a high school teacher, teach history, coach hockey and baseball. That was what I was going to do. And then all of a sudden, my first assignment, I passed all the selection process, and I'm in the Ranger Regiment, 75th Ranger Regiment, and as a private, and I had no idea what I was doing. Just started working my way up, and it fortunately worked out for me, and just kept getting promoted and doing great jobs. Was able to work at the United States Military Academy at West Point, which was an amazing assignment. Also a drill instructor, also Officer Candidate School. Was able to put in 26 years as a sergeant major, and it worked out for me.
That's amazing. So you were at West Point, or Army West Point, and then you were also, you said, at Officer Candidate School. Where is that for the Army?
There's a couple different satellite sites. I was at a satellite campus at Camp Smith, New York, but the main hub's at Fort Benning, Georgia.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Where we did our jump school stuff. So I went through that program. Had your friends, the black hats, hanging
Yeah,
out.
right.
So you finished an amazing 26 years on active duty. That puts you 45, 40, probably 40, right? Somewhere around there? 46, 42?
Right.
As you're getting ready to transition, what's catching your eye? Like, how do you know this is the right move?
That's a great question. So I was actually working at West Point. This was 2005, so it was 5 years before I retired. And the New York Rangers NHL team, professional sports team, was coming to West Point to do like their 5-day camp. They've been picked to finish dead last in the NHL, so their president and general manager, a great man by the name of Glenn Sather, he brought the team up to West Point. So the coach of Army hockey team at the time, still is, Brian Riley, he calls me in and says, hey, the Rangers want to do some type of, outdoor team building, military flair. I was like, what the heck do they want to do? So I went to New York City, talked to the coach, Tom Rennie, great guy. Said, yeah, we want to do this. We don't want to get any players hurt, but we want to do this type of, special forces assessment type stuff. Great. So like you would do, I got all the boys together and said, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to run these professional athletes through this outdoor team building course at night, pitch dark, weather was terrible, and it worked out okay, and it was awesome. So, I kind of, captained this for, the 4 or 5 days they were there. So at the end of this, Glenn Sather calls me to New York City and starts talking to me and says, hey, you're really good at this. And you know how you are as a veteran or first responder. You always like downplay what you do.
Right.
Like you take it as regular work. And I was like, pretty good at what? He was like, I watch how these men looked at you when you were talking about leadership and mental toughness and discipline and teamwork. He's like, you should think of doing this when you're done being in the military. And that was it. That's how it started. And, started a company. I co-founded a company with a partner. And then we went for 5 years, just kind of doing it part-time. And when I retired in 2010, I said, hey, I'm going to do this full-time. That's just kind of how it started. And, one team led to another team. A team led to some of these great businesses I got to work with. And it was just really word of mouth. And then I just started developing this process of leadership, mental toughness, culture development.
When you left the military then, what year was that when you did that?
2010, retired.
2010. Yeah. And so you started JBS Leaders, and that is the original company, or did you work with somebody else for a while?
Right. I worked with another company for a bit, 15 years. It was called Elite Leadership Training, which I co-founded. And it was great. And that's just basically how we started. And like anything, you got to start like honing your craft and
specializing. Yeah.
So you really got to start honing your craft, and you got to find what you're trying to do. Here's the thing, what military and first responders, this is what they don't do. As you know, we're in a selfless service business, right? We're in a servant leadership business, being in the military or a first responder, right? That's exactly what you are. You're a servant leader. But you have to understand, you have special skills that people will pay for. People will pay for your experience, your knowledge, your teaching. And so, you have to believe in that. And then when you go out and you see these businessmen or these sports teams, you say, listen, this is how I'll bring you value. I'll bring you value like this. And there's not a whole lot of difference between like a 20-person company organization or a 30-person sports team. They have the same values that we're using, in the military or a firehouse or a hospital or anything else, like, teamwork, accountability, commitment, honor, all that culture development system that we've, honed into ourselves.
Yeah. And I think so many people in the military, so many leaders from the military do very well with companies, with their careers after the military. But those that really, do, to use an overused phrase, 10X, their position in life, are those that get really specific about one thing and own it. And, honing your craft, I think, is just another way of saying that. Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, just talked about people who spend a lot of time, 10,000 hours was his number, doing one thing and get so good at it that they just skyrocket. And so I'm not saying that it's everybody's goal to make millions of dollars, but making money is simply just a reflection of adding value to the world. As long as you're doing it ethically, if you add more value, you make more money, right, than the other guy. And so all of us want to be relevant. We all want to add value. And so it's not about chasing the dollar. It's about adding more relevance, like being more relevant to people, and Anyway, I'm going down rabbit holes here, but my point is that completely resonated with me when you said hone your craft, right? And so you honed your craft to be working with medium-sized companies or organizations and working directly with the leadership of that group to get more efficient. Is that pretty accurate?
A lot of times, I love working with the C-suite executives, right? And the head coaches and that sort of thing. But a lot of times organizations hire me to work with that next level, that up and coming, that emerging leader, that young man or young woman or coach, assistant coach that's right there on the verge, right? That's the person they see, right? That's the young Army captain, right? That's ready to take over a command. I found my niche with that group and helping them, move to the next level. It's just simple leadership skills, and it's allowing them to take ownership of who they are as a leader. I say to my seminars all the time, I said, look, I'm a cheerleader. It works for me. But if it doesn't work for you to be a cheerleader, don't do it because it won't be authentic and no one will believe it. Right. So hone what leadership style you are. You don't have to, you don't have to be the rah-rah. That works for me. People see that. They believe it. So hone your own leadership style. And when, these emerging leaders, they do that, they see it, they believe it, they continue their education, they continue to learn and develop. That's the symbol of excellence right there.
Nice. That was deep. That was pretty good. What does your day look like right now? Like, in a given, in this year, in 2019, what does it look like? You're on the road for, are you traveling all around the country doing seminars? Are they a day long, 3 days long? Are you actually still out doing like experiential stuff out in the woods, or what's it look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, my daily duties is I do a lot of this with clients, so one-on-one. Okay. So I do one-on-one life coaching with a lot of executives, athletes, and so that's where my bulk of my day goes. Okay. But I also do leadership seminars for companies, and what I usually do is I do like a day seminar, half-day seminar, or split it up, to morning and an afternoon, so everybody can come, right? So this way you don't have to stop work. Yeah. And then I do one-on-one breakout sessions for the next 2 days, and it's been very pleasing because people sign up. They love the one-on-one breakouts. They get to sit with me for 45 minutes, and they can just be like, "This is what I need help with." And I'm like, okay, here you go. And, I don't judge anybody on anything. Everything's confidential. And I try to help them on their path to success. So that's really great. And I still do about 6 times a year. I'll do a big seminar, 500 people or more. That's usually like an hour and a half. And yes, we still 3-4 times a year, we do an outdoor, team building. I call it Operation Victory Spike. We do that where we get, business people together or athletes. It's kind of a unisex outdoor team building, which just puts time in teamwork. So, I just love doing it. I found out I had a passion for it. And I want to tell your listeners to find what they're passionate about, right? And I know it's a kind of a cliche, but it's not. About 2 years ago, my daughter, who's the chief of staff of my company, we sat down and we were doing like a self-assessment. And so she said to me, answer these 5 or 6 questions. She gave them to me. And one of the questions was, what do you do as a professional leadership coach? Like, what do you do? I was writing like all this stuff about, I do this and I do this and I do this and this. And then she said, no, Dad, that's not what you do. You turn individuals into leaders. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I do. But you see, I was like overcomplicating that. That's exactly what I do. I try to find that person that up and coming, rising through the ranks, and let me help you.
Yeah. And so your comment there was find out what they're good at, right? And most of us, and that was a great example that most of us, and probably one of the main points, is that we don't see in ourselves, especially first responders and members of the military, because we downplay everything. I was just at an event on Friday where they were saying, hey, who's having challenges marketing yourself? I raised my hand. My business is pretty new, and they're like, well, how could you possibly have trouble marketing yourself? And I happen to be in the insurance-based personal financial management world, and it's got not a lot to do with driving and commanding submarines. But they said, just talk about this. And I was like, well, why would I talk about being in a submarine in my military time? And they said, you guys are all the same. And they said basically what you said, that people do not talk about their strengths because they don't even see them. And right. I think most of us out there, as I help people just relay to them what I think they would be uniquely good at, because that's kind of my bandstand to you, by the way, is helping people put a personal financial basis in place so that they can focus on their unique genius, whatever that is. I met somebody this weekend who was an edutainer, and that's a phrase I'd never heard before, but she basically takes reptiles around to schools and large organizations, and they pay a lot of money to just be around that thing. Like, there's no chance that could be my unique genius. But if people are enabled, they set up their lives to be able to focus on that unique genius, find out what they're really good at. A lot of times it takes help from your family. That has been my best perspective, is asking my kids, my wife, my mother-in-law, what am I good at that you just think is amazing? Because I don't see it. None of us see it.
And it's great. Like I go back to Glenn Sather. Like he saw something. Like he was seasoned. Not only played the sport and coached the sport and managed the sport. Now he's a team president of one of the original 6 NHL teams, and he saw that, and that's part of I have a book out, Warrior Leadership: Steps to Success for Leaders on the Ground, and I talk about mentorship. And he saw me and mentored me there. Like, didn't try to change me. He's like, listen, you got something here. I watch how people look at you, and then so we should always be, you and I especially, and anybody else, like, continue to be mentors, right? Continue to help people on the path. Like, it's okay you're trying this. It's okay you're trying something new. If you fell at it, no problem. And that's what we should continue to be. Because see, here's the thing, is that like, people shouldn't get wrapped in like a timeline. Like, oh, I got to graduate at 18. I got to go to college for 4 years, or join the military for 4 years. And after that, I got to do this. And then by this time I should be married. And then, listen, develop your own timeline. Find what works for you. Everybody develops differently, and it's okay to do that.
Yeah, that's a great comment. I tell my kids all the time, you guys are going to live to 100. It's not like it's Andrew Carnegie's time where he had to, work at 14 and, do something great by 30, because it was all downhill from there. You mess up the first 20 years of your life, just keep going. That was a great story you told there, about the Rangers and him seeing something, because again, you didn't see it, but you were in a position where you were ready to listen to that, right? What advice is there out there for all these people you've coached about just being observant, to listen to comments from people, ask questions? I mean, how do they find it is really what I'm saying.
Right. Just really, be a thoughtful listener, and then write it down. And then, don't get so broad at your skill set. Like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. It's so funny because, people see that I'm retired from military and they're like, oh, can you teach me shooting? I'm like, no, I don't do that. Like, here, call this guy. Can you teach me, you're in shape, so can you train me? No, I don't do that. Call this guy. This is what I do, right? I teach leadership, mental toughness, culture development. Like, I will focus on the macro. That's what I do. You find your skill set. And what I've done is I've continued to develop it over the years, like getting better and better and better. Like, you continue to have to develop it. I used to just I remember my clients like 15 years ago, like I was just throwing so much content at them. Like, it was overwhelming. And actually, a senior vice president from a company was like, oh my God, that was great. But that was like 3 days worth of information. She's like, scale that back a bit. Absolutely. And oh, by the way, I'll pay you 3 times for that. Right. So I was like, oh, okay. But, I was just trying to give everybody so much bang for their buck, which I still do. Yep. But it was drinking through a fire hose of information. Yeah. So you want people to retain.
You kind of go through this place in every field or every career, I think, as you get better and better at it. You start off as oblivious and incompetent or, close to that. And you just kind of get lucky every once in a while and have successes, and it's beautiful. But then you become super studied and you're really competent. You try to throw so much at people that I've seen in the sales world that I'm in, people's performance actually go down after a couple of years because they're just alienating everyone they meet. And it's totally the same way as a speaker. Great comments. And then eventually you get to this mature kind of elderly state where you're like, I don't mean old, but like in the field where you're like, that's not important. Stick with the basic stuff. And that's, I can tell that you're well into that phase, and that was some amazing guidance. But it's important, I think, to become an expert. It's not important to show everyone that you're an expert, because it will actually work against you.
Exactly. My editor, she always uses the comment with me. She's like, you have wisdom now. You have wisdom. And that's what, we try to like put in my book is that like simple takeaways. Like it's, you're not going to, sit there and have a dissertation on my book, but you'll tab the takeaways at the end. You'd be like, that's a perfect reminder. I needed that today. Right. I needed to understand that, I can't be a volcano as a leader just because I'm upset with something. I can't come in and just explode on everybody. I have to be a thoughtful listener as a leader. I talk about being a force multiplier, and you and I in both military understand what that means, but it's not meant in a military term. It's meant that, do whatever you have to do to help the organization win. If you walk by the copier and the copier needs paper, put paper in the copier. You know, if you need to stay late and help somebody finish a project, then stay late and help somebody finish a project. And that's exactly what that means. That's what leaders should be, is a force multiplier. And I tell young leaders this all the time. I just talked to a young lady a few weeks ago. She's 22, graduated college. Company hired her, and she's in charge of 4 people. And she called me. She's like, listen, I've never been in charge of anybody. I'm like, okay, here's some simple things to do. Like, don't overthink it. Simple things to do. Lead by example and be a servant leader. She goes, what's that mean? I'm like, well, don't ask anybody to do anything you're not. Lead by example. And 2, be a servant leader. Find out what their needs are and help them.
Yeah.
So,
boom. All right. So this book, your book's pretty new. Obviously, they can find it on Amazon. I read sections, or at least kind of the outline of it, from your website, which has got a great background of what this book's about. Who would you say your book is most for? Like, is it for everyone in the audience here, which I kind of think it is, but I want to hear from you.
I think it's a great book for senior leaders to read and recapture who they are.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect book for the emerging leader.
Yeah.
That young man or young woman, that's ready to take the next step, whether it's the C-suite or, I'm running a maintenance team or, whatever that case may be. This is a book for them. It gives them simple, leadership takeaways, thought process to help you move forward. In fact, I've been getting, a lot of great reviews. I've sent it to a lot of senior people that I know, and they're like, oh my God, this is great. I bought one for my whole team. I'm like, perfect.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what I want. So, because the basis of being a warrior, there are physical traits, right? But there's also, emotional, mental, spiritual traits that help you become a warrior. So that's what this book tells you. Continue to work the process.
Yeah, and I think as we, those of us who are in, all of us probably listening are in this position of service, and we're about to transition to a completely new world. What strengths do we actually bring to this new world that we take for granted? I've talked with a lot of guests, on just the stuff that's not obvious to us, but it's obvious to everybody else out there in the world. And so we've covered a lot, like, you show up on time, like you got your stuff put together and you don't need help on some very basic things. You're not going to offend people. You get, that not everyone's like you, and all these kinds of things that we've learned in the military and we've learned in public service. So those things we have a leg up on. But what about those leadership traits that we don't really know are unique, right? And that's one of the things that I think I read a book. I won't say it's similar to yours, but I read a book that had discussion of very basic stuff about leadership and working in organizations. And the stuff initially when I read it, I was like, well, that's pretty obvious stuff. That's not really that helpful to me. But when I went back and read it, I was like, this is important to recognize that this is clearly not obvious stuff to everybody else out there. And so it's what we bring to organizations. And so, I'm partnered up with a buddy who's starting a company from ground up, and he had 10 employees and now he's got like 40. And he asked me to kind of come in and help. And some of the stuff that he was asking or that I was observing was really obvious stuff to us. It's in your book, I bet, but it's also not obvious to the rest of the world. So I think your book is a nice, for somebody getting ready to transition and go into an organization, a place they've never been. I think it would be a great reminder. If it's in that book and it's obvious to you, remember, it's not going to be to that organization where you're headed. Yeah,
you said it. I use the term, common sense, but not common practice, right? And it's simple things like, why do you get to work on time? Why do you show up prepared? Why are the things that, why do you need to have a high emotional quotient, EQ, right? That's understanding people. What we take for granted, the military is the melting pot of the country and some of the world. Like, think about it. Like, you have people under your charge or with you, your mates, or they're from everywhere, right? So you learn to like get over differences, work together, and the big thing is like a lot of times, companies and sports teams, they want to look to the boss or they want to look to the head coach to push the chemistry down on them. Like, this is the chemistry and culture we're going to have. Now, their responsibility is to nurture that, make sure it's healthy, but it's the people in the organization. It's their responsibility to ensure that culture is healthy, right? Yeah. And so they have to learn to work together, and that's where that then healthy culture comes from. And then all of a sudden, and then the leader can take them to the next step. You can have a vision and a purpose, and the leader can take that organization to wherever it needs to go.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so we're coming to the end, but tell everybody the name of the book again and the best place to reach out to you, JB.
Sure. My book is called Warrior Leadership, Steps to Success for Leaders on the Ground. You can find that on Amazon. Best place to find me is right on my website. It's www.jbsleaders.com. You can reach on there. My number's on there. You can email me. Be glad to get a hold of you. And I come in and help companies be great. That's what I love doing.
That's awesome. So you hail from Las Vegas. I don't think we said that while we were on air. I meant to circle back and haven't done it yet, so I got to throw one last question in. So I saw a bunch of sports teams. So you've worked with a few. How many professional teams, college teams have you worked with?
Professional college teams, probably close to 20.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah, it's just an incredible list of emblems, I guess, on the website. It's pretty awesome.
Well, I mean, I was fortunate to be able to, drink from the Stanley Cup. So, not everybody gets to do that. So that was a big pleasure awesome. Of mine.
That is amazing. Well, JB, thanks so much for joining us. Any last things that I haven't said that we should have?
No, it was great, Gary. You're great. Keep it going. Keep helping out these young men and women that are transitioning from either the military or from, first responder life. And I'll just remind them, do not devalue what you do. You bring a lot to the table, a lot of experience, a lot of leadership, a lot of teamwork, a lot of commitment. Don't devalue that stuff, because companies love that. That's what they want. And if you have something you want to do and start your own company, do it. And last thing is, find smart people like yourself to invest with. That's what I do.
That's awesome. Great advice. Thanks so much, JB. And everybody, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.